Hello and good evening. Thank you all for joining us for our first edition of Relationships 101. Thank you for joining us. I don't know if it's 7 o'clock p.m. where you are, or 8 o'clock p.m. on the East Coast, or maybe 5 o'clock on the West Coast, or some other time, because you're watching us from all over the world. But wherever you are watching us from, we're super excited to have you guys here. I know that people are still logging on, so we'll give them just a few moments to do that. Listen, we appreciate you being here. We're looking forward uh, to all of 2023 and what it has to offer through Relationships 101. As I've mentioned in several posts, we'll meet once a month, the first Tuesday of each month, and our goal is just to help build strong relationships. Whether you are currently in a relationship, whether you are looking to be in a relationship, or whether you just want to gain some tools before you ever get in a relationship, whatever it is, we're super happy that you're here. Now, for those of you who watch us on Sundays, or you watch Pastor Sean when she does strategies for success, or you've been involved in other programs where they use StreamYard. This is not Zoom, so we can't see you. You can see us. And so the way we need you to interact with us is through the comment section. And we read the comment section. It's kind of how we feel like we're all together. And so, as we're talking throughout tonight, if there are different comments that you want to share, if it's an amen, or if it's that's I know that's right, or that happened to me, or even a question you may have, because we'll go back and read the chat and decipher what questions were sent in. We just encourage you to do it. We just encourage you to take the opportunity to use the chat to do that. I will tell you, at some point tonight, you're going to need some paper, a notebook, a pencil, a pen. You're going to need something to write with, because, well, it's just no way we're going to do something and not give you some homework to do. We're going to ask you some questions, and we're going to need you to kind of step in and lean in, right? Because whatever you put into this is what you're going to get out. We were on our way here, and Pastor John was saying, relationships they're not built off of magic. It'd be great if it was, but real relationships that really work take real work. And so we want you to get prepared. So if you need to get up and go get some paper or some pencils or some pens or a notebook or whatever it is, because we're going to ask you some questions a little later on, and we're going to need you to answer those. And so, again, my name is Pastor Edwin Strickland. Some of you may not even know who we are. Somebody may have sent you the information, so I don't want to make that assumption. My name is Edwin Strickland. It's my beautiful wife. We've been married 28 years. She's going to tell you a little bit about that story in a little bit. And we're just excited to share what we've learned over the course of these years, right?
Right.
And so one of the things that we want you to do, it looks like we're almost close to 200. Come on, we need 8 more people. Come on, tag your friends, tell them, say, hey, don't forget about Relationship 101. Log in, tag them, say, hey, you told me you were going to be here. There we go. We just need 5 more of you. We're going to get to 200. We're going to get to 200. And one of the neat things we wanted to do tonight, and I've got some people, 199. There we go. It's almost like a telethon. 199. We need one. Who's going to be the 200th person to log in? There we go. We had 200. All right. And so what we want to do, we've got some people in the studio who's going to help us, need you to do something for us. And here's what we need you to do. We want you to hashtag 2 things, okay? The first thing, and you can do it all in one comment if you like, but we really want to know, where are you watching from? Where are you viewing this from? So if you're within the 50 states of the United States, just hashtag your state. Let us know. Are you from Texas, Arkansas, Washington State, New York? Where are you watching from? And so people in the studio are going to try to help us capture that, because we really like to know how many states were actually here tonight. The second thing we want you to hashtag is to let us know, are you single or are you married? You know, we don't want to know anything other than that. If you're separated, divorced, if it's complicated,
you're simple. If you're divorced, it's you're single. I mean, it's just you either single or you're married.
Just let
right?
us know. We won't.
So let us
we
know.
won't get complicated tonight. Tell us you're single or you're married, and then and even if you don't want to tell us that, that's fine. But at least let us know where you're watching from.
So listen, we're super excited to have all you. And I got to laugh about this because I just saw Cedric Jones comment, and I haven't met him, but his wife Jazz was the one who came for the conference,
Okay,
and helped take care of me.
Okay.
And he just said, "No, she didn't make sure I was here, and she ain't here yet." All right, so you get the award. You're first. You get bragging rights that you beat her here, right? Listen, guys, we're super excited to have you guys here. And it's so important that you understand that good relationships.
Mhm.
Now, we're talking about marriage today. We'll talk about marriage, and we'll say marriage a lot, but we're not just talking about marriage
because we're talking about relationships.
We're talking about relationships.
Yes.
And the tools you learn here, it'll impact how you talk to your kids,
Yes.
how you talk to your parents, how you do things at work. And the truth of it is that a lot of people make a gross assumption that because they love someone, that life should be easy.
Mhm.
Did anybody else do that? Listen, I met Edwin, you know, we were married 6 months. I mean, we knew each other 6 months and 13 days when we got married. And there was just this assumption for me that because we had gotten along so well, that everything had connected so well, that we, and because we believed it was God's will, that it was going to be effortless.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, hear me. I'm not saying marriage has to be hard or relationships have to be hard. I do think we have to renew our mind that anything worthwhile takes effort.
Absolutely.
It takes effort. And so you guys have heard some of our stories. We have a lot of hilarious stories, and a lot of them are around the fact that we didn't necessarily communicate well,
Yeah.
right? And we both talked a lot, but we didn't communicate in the way that the other person understood what we were really saying. We didn't always communicate with the right tone. We didn't always communicate at the right time. There were so many communication errors. So over this year, you'll hear us tell a lot of stories that you can laugh about, but really, we don't just want you to laugh. We want you to learn from our mistakes. Sure. We also want you to be able to look at yourself sometimes and go, that's me. Really, the big work here is that so many times in relationships, I'll tell you this funny story. There's this one particular time I'm praying about you because I really want you to change. Because in my mind, everything in our relationship would be better if you change. Who else has ever thought that? Man, if my partner would just do X, if my kid would just do X, every single thing would be better. And I remember going in to pray one time because, you know, really, I was sick of you. You had got on my last nerve again. And the Lord said to me, don't come back in here again talking to me about Edwin. Y'all, I was shook. I was like, well, if we're not going to talk about Edwin, who we talk about? He was like, no, I want to talk about you. And I think that a lot of times what we do is we deflect on the other person in the relationship. And you go and we make assumptions like this. Well, I've done everything that I know how to. I've done the best that I can do. So then your assumption is they haven't done the best that they can do. Instead of taking the opportunity to say, how can I get better? So everything we're going to be doing here is not for you to look at your mate and go, Edwin, I hope you heard point two. Right. It is for you to say, how can I improve? Yes. How can I be better by the 15th of this month than I am today? How can I get better? One of my things that I'm really working on in the art of communication, because we set a lot of goals each year that we're going to work on to improve our marriage. Yes. And one of the things that I'm working on is asking a question instead of making a statement. Now, I think already that's a nugget for somebody.
Or actually, the way you phrased it,
asking a question
instead of making assumptions about things.
So I'm asking a question instead of making a statement. Right. So instead of saying you didn't, saying did you?
Right.
Instead of saying you didn't consider me, asking did you consider me when you did X?
And it may seem like semantics, but for us, that's important because an accusation is a trigger for me. And because it's not your intent to trigger me, then if I don't ever communicate with you and tell you how that makes me feel, then you don't understand how what you're saying as what you would consider normal conversation is a trigger for me. And we're going to talk about communication a little later on, but it's important for people to understand that, you know, we didn't have the luxury, if you want to call it that, to know each other for 3 years or 5 years or 10 years before we got married. I met you in 1994 on February the 5th, the day before your birthday. We were married 6 months and 13 days later on August the 20th of 1994. We lived about 3 hours away from each other. So we communicated via phone, and when I could see you on the weekends when I wasn't working. I think I drove from Conway to Fayetteville 13 weekends in a row to see you. And when we got married, we didn't have the skills we had today. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that.
That we didn't have the tools, and there was no place. We couldn't go to Dollar General or Walmart or even Saks Fifth Avenue
and buy the tools.
We couldn't buy the tools. We had to learn the tools, and some of those tools we learned was through trial and error. And what we've done over the last 28 years is found some universal tools that we believe work for everyone, that can also be tweaked to work specifically for individual couples and people in relationships.
Well, and I'd also like to add this, that just because you're together doesn't mean you do these things well. Because, you know, one of the things that you said that I think is incredibly profound is that what couples and people in relationships can easily do is get into the dance of dysfunction.
Yes.
So the dance of dysfunction, has anybody ever gotten mad because they thought their spouse was mad at them? So you go get mad because you already think they're mad. Now, you may not be right that they're mad, but you've decided that they're mad. And so because you've decided that they're mad, now you go be mad first. Now, that's a dance of dysfunction. Yeah. Another dance of dysfunction is that couples do this all the time. You have a big blow up. You done cussed each other out. You done forgot everything you know about church and Jesus. You done put your religion down and all of that stuff. And you have this big explosive blow up. And then afterwards you say, we're going to get therapy. Yeah. Because you're so scared you're going to break up that you're willing to do anything. But in 3 days, things are better and everybody's back to playing nice. Yeah. And then what you don't do is go get the tools to get better. And then 3 months later or 3 weeks later or 6 months later, you're back in that dance again. And so what we've tried to do, especially since we were married 15 years, so especially since the last 13 years, we have tried not just to be married, but to dismantle every bit of dysfunction in our relationship. Yes. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Every bit of dysfunction. Absolutely. Because one of the things that the Bible says is that we will have days of heaven on earth. You cannot have days of heaven on earth if you tolerate dysfunction. You've got to say, I am willing to get rid of the dysfunction. And that because I think away, because I've had some experiences, because you think away and you've had some experiences, what we both need to do is to bring our thinking in alignment with what God says so we can experience amazing relationships.
And that gets us to why Relationships 101. Why should I sign up? Why should I attend Relationships 101 once a month? And I want to talk a little bit about why we're doing this. Partially because I got a mandate from God that this is what I was supposed to do in this year. I really had no idea how I was going to do this, because I tell people all the time, I've messed up so much. I don't know that I'm even qualified to talk about relationships. And then I think, oh, wait, I've messed up so much. I'm qualified to talk about relationships because I can tell you what not to do in many cases. And I say that tongue in cheek, but the reality of it is we have developed some really good tools that I think will assist people. One of the things I understand is that most people talk about, most couples, most people who are in a relationship, they talk about the mundane things. They talk about problems and tasks and other matters like who's going to pick the kids up, what are we going to have for dinner, maybe where we're going on vacation. Are we going to your parents' house? Are we going to my parents' house? Or, I'm going out with the girls, or I'm going out with the guys. They talk about things that are normal part of daily life. But research says that rarely do people set aside a focused period of time to survey, watch this, the true health, the true health of their relationship. And if you think about it, pause for just a moment and think about your own relationship. Think about 2022. How many times in 2022 did you carve out time? Because we carve out time for everything else. We carve out time to get our hair done. We carve out time to get our nails done. We carve out time to go get our petties done. We carve out time to go to the concerts. We carve out time for what's important. But how much time in 2022 did you and your partner carve out to say, hey, let's talk about the health of our relationship. Let's talk about what's going good, and let's talk about what can be improved.
That's right.
And research says that is rarely happening. In fact, I read something as I'm preparing for this class. It said 80% of couples, 80%. That means if you take 100 people, 100 couples, 80 of them spend zero time talking about the health of their relationship. They just go through the motions of what we call a relationship, but they don't check up on it. And it used an example. It said, how long would your car last if you didn't do any maintenance checkup on your car? If you never checked your tires to make sure that they weren't out of balance, if you never changed your oil, if you never looked at the belts on your car, that you would really take a car that's supposed to last you 12 to 15 years and you run it in the ground in 5. And really that's what's happening to relationships. People are getting in relationships that many times should last a lifetime.
That's so good.
But they're not doing the proper checkups throughout the course of the relationship. And what should have lasted a lifetime, we see people who've been married 10 years getting a divorce, 15 years getting divorced, 25 years getting divorced. Why? Because they didn't do the things necessary. And whether you're married tonight, or whether you desire to be married, or whether you never want to be married, you just want to hear Edwin and Sean talk. The reality of it is that you need to be doing checkups in all of your relationships, not just your marriage relationships. You got to be doing checkups with your kids. You got to be doing checkups with your friends. Some people think they're good friends, Sean, but they're not. But they don't know because they don't ask.
Oh my goodness. Like literally people, excuse the how I'm gonna say this. People be out here straight thinking they're a great friend.
Yes.
And their friends are like, you're not a great friend.
Right.
You suck as being a friend. And I think that this was the hardest thing, one of the hardest things for us to learn. That the definition of whether I'm a good wife doesn't come from me.
No, you don't get to tell, you don't get to determine it because you're not wifing yourself. You're my wife. You have to communicate with me and get my feedback on whether I think you're a good wife or
and
not.
You don't get to decide that you're a good husband.
Right.
And what we don't get to say, oh, well, so-and-so would be so happy if they had a husband like that. I'm not so-and-so.
That's right.
And I think that, and this is why we have to do the self-check. And one of the questions, and now you go get a lot of chance. And I want to challenge you. You are going to have many opportunities over the next 11 months to find something else to do on the first Tuesday of the month.
Oh, the
you
enemy's
gonna have
make
many
sure of it.
opportunities to find something else to do.
Yes.
But really, you got to ask yourself, why have we created a society that we will spend thousands on rings?
Come on.
Thousands on engagement parties, the party to announce that we're married, right? And thousands on weddings, thousands on honeymoon, but you won't commit to a free class one Tuesday a month.
We didn't even ask people. Literally, this was so important to get people here to hear what we want to share. We didn't even require you to register. I literally told my team, I said, I don't even want them to give me an email. I don't want their phone numbers. I don't need their names. I just need them to show up and get the information because we don't want to put any obstacle in your way that's going to stop you. But you're so right. You watch on February the 7th, there'll be things that'll come up and you'll have to make the decision. I said it in a Facebook post. Anything that's important to you, you'll make time for it.
And the truth of it is that a lot of people want a healthy relationship in theory,
Mm,
but not in life.
they don't want to do the work.
They want a theory. They don't want to do the work for it, because the truth of it is that it is easier for us to lean in and take a cute
take
picture
a selfie and post that
and
thing?
go, "That's my boo, that's my
Mhm.
bae," than to deal with the fact that we've been secretly irritated with each other for 2 weeks.
And we'll get into this a little later too, but it's also easier for me to just buy you nice things than to deal with the problem. It's also better for us to go on fancy dates than to really deal with the issues. And so for the 270 of you that are here so far, and listen, you ought to tag your friends. If you know people who told you they were coming and you don't see them on here, you need to tell them, hey, they're about to get into the meat of the matter and you need to get here. You don't want to miss this. You need to tell them that.
Now, this is free. Y'all didn't ask for this. The whole class is free, but this is free. Some of y'all are out here taking advice from people that you would not want your marriage to be like theirs. You would not want your relationship to be like this. One of the first decisions that we did is we stopped talking to people that we would not want their relationship.
Yes.
So if you don't value marriage, if you don't value family, if you don't value connection, if you okay with living in the man cave and never seeing your wife, if she okay with living in the she shed, then you're not people that we're interested in listening to. And so many of you need to stop and ask yourself, who is giving you advice? Who is speaking into your life? Who are you talking to when you're in trouble? Because I'm not trying to be shady, but if your mama and grandmama have never kept a successful relationship, that's not who you call when you have trouble. Now, the other hand, some of you don't call. Some of you call the wrong people, and some of you don't call anybody, because you still live in this horrible mindset that says what happens in this house stays in this house. So you got 3 decades of dysfunction because you would not sit before someone and be transparent about the trouble you were in. And what we have found out in the time we've been counseling people, most of the people, if they had got help early and done the work, they could have had a successful marriage. Notice what I said, got help and done the work. Because I don't care how many steps somebody gives you, you got to do the work. You actually got to show up and do the work. You got to do the work when it's irritating. You got to do the work when you got warm and fuzzies. You got to do the work when you don't feel like it, when the kids got 32 activities. You have to invest in your marriage. And I want to tell you this, one of the things that we decided, we're noticing, we've been married 28 years, and we've noticed over the last 5 years that a lot of people in the 20-something year marriage start to get divorced. Now, I know we're not just talking about marriage, but just bear with me as we walk through this. And the challenge is that a lot of people did not actually have a good marriage. What they had was a good partnership for raising kids. They did not have a good marriage. They had a good partnership for raising kids. So then when the kids are out of the house, or the kids get to the place where they don't need you as much, the relationship is in trouble, because so long ago it stopped being about Edwin and Sean, and it only started being about the kids. And then when the kids aren't there, there's no connection. You've got to work on your marriage. If you want your marriage, you're only going to get out of your marriage what you put into it.
And let me say, we are living in 2023. And I know that it is oftentimes said when I talk and counsel with people talk about their grandparents' relationships. And I need to stress, because we're not just talking about marriage, but I need to stress for people who sometimes look at what I consider what may have been antiquated relationships. They're like, well, my grandmother always stayed with my grandfather and he had all of these problems. The truth of the matter is, and I'm talking to some men here, the truth of the matter is your grandmother didn't have options. Your grandmother didn't have a degree that she could go out and get another job. Your grandmother didn't have sometimes even the legal right to be able to have a checking account on her own. She may not have been able to buy property. She may not have had all of these opportunities. Men have to behave differently in 2023 if you want to be in an effective relationship, because we're not dealing with 1940 and 1950 women. And I want to say that because I need to preface this for some things I'm going to say earlier, that if a relationship is going to work, it used to almost had to be dependent upon the woman making it work. But women have options. In fact, every woman, whether you married or not, you ought to type in the comment section, I have options. And it's true. You have options. You don't have to stay in bed. They're like, come on, Pastor Edwin, what you doing to us? Listen, I'm trying to help you, brothers. If you will learn to increase your emotional intelligence, if you will learn to understand what true compatibility and partnership looks like, you too can be retired from your job. No. Thank you, baby. But you too can learn to find your person and build with your person something that is amazing. And so part of
let me say this, because I really want you to have a reference point of this. I'm 50. I'll be 51 in February, right? We were looking just a few months ago. And when we were born in 1972, a woman could not get us an account at the bank unless her husband or her father or a male relative approved it. Did you hear what I said?
1972.
It was after 1972 that a woman could go in and get an account without. There were women they talked about, because I was doing all this research trying to understand, because I kept seeing the comparison about why women didn't live. It was the 80s before a woman could get an apartment or a house without the permission of a man. So even if a woman wanted to leave, if her husband wouldn't sign or her father wouldn't sign, she couldn't leave.
So we're not talking about those kind of relationships, because that's not what 2023 is. 2023 is really about partnership. It really is about, if you're going to be in a relationship, especially a romantic relationship, it's about you learning that it's not just going to be your way, and that you're going to have to find the ability, and we'll talk about this, to create synergy so that both people feel like they're winning. Because again, people have options. People have options.
I want to say this, and I really do believe this, because I want to say this to the men. I believe that men want to have healthy, effective relationships too.
I believe that with everything in me.
I believe that society has made it easier for women to admit we have problems, admit that we need help, and that men have really been taught to stuff that. So I will say this, I do think it is harder for men to get to a place of vulnerability, but hear what I'm saying, men. Just because it's harder doesn't mean you're excused from it.
That's right.
It's harder, but you're not excused from it. And what I really say to men when I'm talking to them is, you can't want to be the leader in everything but emotional intelligence, but vulnerability, but compassion, right? And you also have to understand that working hard and providing does not alleviate you of your responsibility to create a safe emotional place. Okay, that's what I want to say.
We're gonna talk just a little bit more, then we're gonna get into some of these things. But right now, it looks like there's about 300 people on here with us tonight. I believe there's another 100 people out there who either have forgotten that this was happening, or they just need you to hit that share button and put it on your story or put it on your page and let them know that they need to come in here and hear what we're about to talk about, because we're about to get into the first part of the meat of the matter. So again, the purpose of Relationship 101.
Oh, wait. They told us in the backstage that we have 20 states represented, and Africa. Right.
So if you haven't put your state
in. Let's see how many states we can get tonight.
And if you say, oh, I don't know if I did, do it again. Hashtag your state, hashtag your country. All right. So again, the purpose of Relationships 101 is to help you check in on your relationship and for you to master some tools to help you be more effective. This class has been designed to provide those who participate with the tools and the knowledge to improve their current relationships and or to start new ones in a healthy way. It doesn't matter how bad it's been. We believe that today we can start working toward improvement. Having the right relationship tools are important for healthy relationships because they can help couples to better communicate with each other. help them resolve conflict, and to strengthen their bond together. Additionally, it is our hope as we teach this class over the next 11 months that this class can help you to understand your own emotional needs. Part of what we'll talk about is how do you, especially some of us men, how do we communicate with our own emotional needs? You were talking about men earlier. For me, it was just my upbringing. I was just taught that all that emotional stuff, you bury that stuff. You put that down. You don't talk about that. You don't deal with that. Really, I think for years, all I had was two emotions. It was happy or mad. It wasn't even sad. It was just happy or mad. And so we want to talk about how do you understand your own emotional needs, and then how do you as a mature adult communicate those needs effectively in a way to other people so that you can in turn become more fulfilled in your relationship and help other people become more fulfilled as well when they're with you in that relationship.
No, I think that's good, because I think that we never set out to try to help anybody else with their marriage.
No.
We just didn't want to get divorced, and we didn't want to be miserable.
We just did not.
But once we got the tools, we were willing to share what we knew, because we realized that lots of people like us had not grown up in really healthy relationships. I just got to point this out. I don't know who LJ Davis is. LJ Davis say they looking for the single hashtags. So if you single up in this house, you need to holler at LJ. Also, I want you to do this, because I know that some of the women are signed in, but you said your husband is watching with you guys. Listen, sometimes what women don't do, somebody said this in Inner Circle last night. They said they had never asked their husband to attend. You just assume he won't.
He won't, yeah.
Instead of saying, let's put this on the big screen.
Yeah.
Let me order some pizza.
Yeah.
Let me cook your favorite meal. Sit down and watch this with me. Don't
There's
assume.
some singles in here. All right.
Some singles
Come on,
up
singles.
in here.
All right. All right.
Don't assume. Angela said, my husband is watching with me. Don't assume that they will say no, but also don't say, watch this so you can be better.
In fact, let's go ahead. Let's take a moment and do this. If you're watching with your partner, your spouse, go ahead and let us know. You can just say, we're watching together. Just
several couples have
we're
said
watching
that.
together. I love that. I love that.
Several of the women, so their names are up there, right? But their husbands are watching with them.
Great. That's
so I'm gonna
awesome.
tell you already what we're gonna do in February.
So then we're already over 300 people then.
Yes. So in February, what we're gonna do is we're gonna have a challenge. We're gonna want you to take a selfie while you're watching.
Oh,
that's what we want you to do, right? We
great.
want you to.
And then afterwards, they can post.
And afterwards, you can post your selfie. So February, I know y'all may already be dressed for bed, have your bonnets on, so I'm not gonna ask you to do that.
You can even, if you want to be dressed up, you can take your picture early. you just can't post it until after we get.
Look
through.
how many couples are watching together.
I love it.
And I think it's so important, because if we buy into the statistics, we will not do the work.
That's right.
Because we will think no one wants to succeed.
Yes.
People,
but it's actually the opposite.
People want their relationships to work.
Yes.
Many times people quit because they simply don't know what else to do.
Yes.
When our relationship was in trouble, we didn't know what else to do. It was never that we didn't love each other. It was never that we didn't. I'm sorry. She said she just hashtag. She said she wasn't trying to find nobody. She just wanted the singles to shout out. Okay. My bad. I ain't trying to cause no trouble.
She like,
Mr.
hold on now.
Mr. Davis, I'm not trying to cause.
She said, I am watching with my husband.
My bad. I think it's so important, because we just didn't know what to do.
And all we knew to do is what we had seen or what we had saw. You know what? And this is funny. You know what our saving grace was? And we talked about this the other day. We wanted to be the Huxtables. We had never seen that in real life. We had never seen a mom and a dad kind of, talk to their kids in a way where they were teaching them something, not just whooping their tail. You know what I mean? And so we wanted that, but we didn't have the tools. And when you don't have the tools, it's like
wait, can you
trying
do this, guys?
Trying to build a house with a hammer.
Can you put this in the comments? It's okay not to know it all.
Oh, that's good.
Can everybody just take a deep breath and say that?
It ought to be 321 of you.
It's okay not to know it all.
It's okay.
What's not
Oh, that's
okay,
good. It's okay not
it's
to know it
okay
all.
not to know it all.
Yes.
What's not
Yes.
okay is to stay there.
Yes. It's okay not to know it
It
all.
is okay not to know it all.
Yes.
It is okay if you don't know how to communicate well. It is
Yes.
okay if you don't know how to be
Yes.
vulnerable. It is okay if you don't know how to solve problems. What's not okay is to stay there.
Mm.
Our goal is to give you at least one tool
Yeah.
that you can use to eradicate what you don't know.
And I tell you, we've got what we call power tools. And they're tools that if you use, they can be used in multiple areas and they build on each other. You know, obviously, one of the tools we're going to talk about today is communication. We want to share with you kind of our overall vision for the next, say, 11 months. But we also want to hear from you. At the end of tonight, we've got a survey that we're going to put up. We'll do it at the end, and you're going to be able to tell us, hey, here are some things I want to talk about, because we don't want to just come up here and just talk. We really want to get to the meat of the matter of what we can help people with, right? And so here are some key things that we're going to talk about over the next 11 months. The first one, obviously, is communication. It's communication. We know that communication is key in any relationship. It's important to be open and honest with your partner and to make an effort to listen and to understand each other's perspective. Our spiritual parents said to us years ago, they said, you two be so powerful if you ever understand that you're the opposite side of the same coin, right? Opposite side of the same coin. And because we're the opposite side of the same coin, it means we're a complete coin. And when we learn to not fight against each other and how to communicate our needs and the way we see things, man, our relationship took off.
It absolutely did, because one of the things that we learned in communication, which was also a part of the next thing, the second thing we're going to talk about is trust and respect, is that we stop trying to make each other the other person.
Oh, come on, talk about that.
Many of us are struggling in relationship because in truth, you think you want to be married to yourself. You want them to process like you want them to solve problems like you want them to like everything that you like, you want them to value everything that you like, right? And so what you do is you're trying to force your spouse into being you. Well, if you know anything about biblical covenants, God puts people together for strength to cover weakness.
And in fact, when you look at true biblical covenant, one group literally looks nothing like the other group. It's how they come together and make something totally complete.
Because strength covers weakness.
So if I'm a farmer, I don't really need to go in a covenant with other farmers.
You need to go in the farm with somebody who can fight and protect the land.
With the warriors. And so when the warriors are fighting, I can feed you. But when someone comes to attack me, you show up and help me.
And how many times have we dishonored our spouse, our friend, our kid because they weren't like us? Difference doesn't mean wrong.
And the truth of the matter is, we know it's we say it all the time, opposites what?
Attract.
And we know that, and yet we'll get together with someone because that opposite has that attraction for us, and then we'll allow what attracted them to us become an irritant. Why? Because we don't have the tools to work through like you said, these two things:
trust and respect. So then the next thing we're going to work on is resolving conflicts.
Yes,
because if you go be in a relationship, you go have some conflict.
And understand that conflict in and of itself is not bad. Conflict is not bad. The ill preparation of solving conflict is what's bad. You know, when we talk about conflict in the truth of it, conflict is normal. In fact, go ahead and put that in the comment section. Say conflict is normal. In every relationship, conflict is normal.
And some of you gonna have to shift your mindset. Conflict and fights are not the same thing.
They're not.
Conflicts are not bad.
No.
We don't want to fight. We want to have healthy conflict resolution.
If I say, and it's not just having healthy conflict. You said it though. It's healthy conflict resolution,
right?
And most people, you know, there's a researcher by the name of John Goodlad, and John Goodlad said that most people teach the way that they've been taught. Well, if you think about it, people who are our age, if you're trying to teach your kids how to add 3-digit addition, right? Most of us are going to tell them if you got 5 and 6, that's 11. You put the 1 down and you do what?
Carry
the 1, right? We're going to use that language, carry the 1. But kids nowadays who are being taught through numerical number sense, they don't know anything about carrying a 1. And so when they begin to teach their kids how to do math, they won't teach the way that we taught them because they've learned something different. And so just because you may have seen mama and daddy fight, just because you may have seen everybody else cuss each other out and get into these dysfunctional cycles. I was talking to somebody the other day talking about, yeah, we fight hard, but we love hard. We get into these fights and then we make this passionate love, but you're in this cycle
that is dysfunction.
It's dysfunction. But if you don't know it's dysfunction, then your dysfunction becomes normal. And what we want to say is, hey, there is a better way.
There is a
to
better
live
way
in resolving conflicts.
Right. And then we're going to get into commitment, shared values, goals, and support.
Mm-hmm.
A strong commitment to
so
relationship is important for long-term success.
Yes, it is.
This means we have to be willing to work through challenges and difficulties together. We tell people this all the time. When people hear our testimony about how our marriage overcame, this is the thing we say. We were both willing to do the work.
Yes.
You cannot save a relationship when only one person is willing to do the work,
yes,
or when one person thinks it's all the fault of the other person. We both have to do the work, right?
Yes.
Having shared values and goals can help strengthen our bond, right? It's going to strengthen the bond. So it's going to be important to have open and honest communication about your individual goals, your shared goals, and your values, and then work together to achieve them.
And shared goals doesn't mean we have to like everything the same.
Right.
I don't have to like my egg scrambled just because you do. You don't have to like bowling just because I do. I don't have to like reading certain books just because you do. It doesn't mean that you have to do everything together, but a shared value means it's something like, what we talk about, we've been talking here lately about you've been talking about how I supported you when you started your business 10 years ago. To me, I never saw that as a big deal. I never saw that as, oh, look at me, look how I'm supporting my wife. We had shared values in that I wanted us to both be successful. I was being successful in the thing that I was doing. I felt your support. I wanted to share the value of supporting you so you could be successful. Shared value is not, oh, well, I like to stay at home and I like to go out. That's just a difference of personality. But when we talk about shared values and goals and supporting one another and being committed to that, that's going to be one of the things that I really, really want us to hone in on one of these sessions, because I'm not sure that all people understand that in relationships.
Well, I was going to say that I think something that you did that was so good for our relationship early on, especially when the kids were young and I was at home with them, that one day you said, you set our family down because we were trying to figure out activities and all of that different stuff. And you said, it is important that everybody here wins.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody here wins. And a lot of relationships, there's a partner that doesn't feel like they're winning while they're creating wins for the rest of the family.
Yes.
And it can be something like this. It can be like the husband who doesn't feel like that he gets valued and respected, even though he's working 2 jobs to pay all the bills, right? It can be the wife who feels like that because she's staying home, the husband doesn't need to understand that she wants to get away sometime. And in relationships, if there is not a win-win, it builds resentment.
Yes.
So if one person begins to feel like, I support you, I show up for you, but you don't support me and you don't show up for me. And what women have a tendency to do sometimes is to say they're okay when they're not.
Yeah.
So their girlfriends know they aren't okay. They mama know they're not okay.
And that's really unfair.
That's really unfair.
And I have to say that because I know that sometimes some women, I won't say most women, want their partners to be mind readers. And that's just an unrealistic, unfair expectation. If I ask you genuinely, are you okay? and you tell me you're okay, and I have no reason to distrust you or not to respect you, I'm going to believe what you say. So if I don't change what I'm doing, but you tell your girlfriends he never changes, he's this, he's that, but you don't communicate, that's what we're talking about. If you don't communicate to me what's really going on, I don't even have the opportunity to change. And I think that's really important. I'm glad you said that.
And if you want somebody to read your mind, let me tell you what I can guarantee is going to happen for you. You are going to be sadly disappointed because you have unmet expectations.
Unmet expectations.
You are going to be sadly disappointed,
Yes.
and you are going to be mad at the other person when really the only person you should be upset with is yourself.
Yeah, I love what Robin said. She said, if you're not okay, say you're not okay. It's okay not to be okay.
It's okay
It's
not
not
to
okay
be
to
okay.
say you're fine when you're not okay, though.
It's okay.
Yes.
So you have these and I'll give y'all a simple example that when I don't know if women still do this, but early on women used to do this all the time. You don't say what you want for Christmas. They ask you, what do you want for Christmas? And you say, I don't really want nothing. I don't really know what I want.
Oh, I know
I
what
don't
you
really
want.
want nothing, blah, 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 blah. And then what you end up doing is they either don't get you anything or they get you something you didn't want.
Or literally don't get you anything.
Don't get you anything. Don't get you anything.
Listen, let me give the guys a free nugget. I tell all my guy friends this. I don't care if you've been married for 1 year or 50 years, you've been dating a week or 500 weeks. If she says she doesn't want anything for her birthday, for Valentine's Day, for Christmas, don't you dare fall for that. You find something to get her, because what she's really saying is, I want you to think of something to get me that I would appreciate. And that's not the same thing as mind reading, because you should know your partner, what they appreciate.
But one of the ways we fixed it is at the
Yes.
beginning of the year, we began to give each other a list.
And here's a tool. Here's a
Here's a tool.
Yep.
Insert power tool.
Yep.
We began to give each other a list
Yep.
of things we wanted, from things as small as $5 to things as if you won the lotto.
Right, expensive
And
as
if
you
you
can get.
won the lotto, and what we would do is we would exchange this list at the beginning of the
Yep.
year, and then we would buy things off of that list, because then it's
Because
still
you
what
didn't
you
know
wanted.
you were going to get it,
Yes.
or when you were going to get it.
Yes.
It was still a surprise, but it met the expectation. It met the
Yes.
expectation.
Yes,
Yeah.
right. So then compatibility.
Yep.
Having
Compatibility.
shared goals, interests, and interests can help create a strong foundation for marriage. Then the next one is compromise and flexibility.
Yes, and when we talk about compromise and we talk about flexibility, one of the things that we're saying here is that anytime when you and your partner disagree or have a different need or want, it's important to be willing to do what the world calls compromise and find mutually acceptable solutions to conflict. Now, we don't particularly like the word compromise. We use the word you see on your screen called synergy. Now, what is it semantics? Not to us, because what synergy says is that we are not looking for what you can lose and what I can lose so that we're both happy. Synergy says, what can we do that you feel like you win and I feel like I win, and we don't have to give up? We're looking for the best rather than just what we can get by with, right?
Right.
And
right.
so we like the word synergy, because synergy by definition is defined as the interaction or cooperation of two people, watch this, working to produce a combined effort greater than the sum of their separate effects. So it's not just about, okay, well, Sean's going to give up this and Edwin's going to give up this, and then we're both going to be kind of miserable, but live together in our kind of miserable state. We like the word synergy. We like the word synergy and flexibility. Why? Because there are going to be times that I get my way. It just is. But there's going to be times you get your way, right? And it's not a tit for tat. It's not quid pro quo. It's not I'm trying to keep count. It's just that I am willing to bend for you sometime, and you're willing to bend for me, and we look like that beautiful palm tree in the wind, just bending back and forth for
so
each other.
sweet.
But you don't get that, though, if you don't work towards synergy. Because at some point, if we're always compromising, one person's going to feel resentful, or worse, both people are going to feel
Both people
resentful.
are going to feel resentful. All right. So then love and affection and intimacy and quality time. So these are things
These
we're
are
going to
just
try to
big
cover
topics.
throughout the year.
Yes.
Have y'all gotten something so far? We got a few minutes left and we want to get into the art and science of communication. We want to get into that.
Is this helping anybody? Just let us know in the comments real quick. Is this helping you? Does this make sense? Is this something that you were expecting? You know, is this helping anybody?
Does anybody have one thing you can already implement?
If so, let us know in the comment section, because we really do. We want to hear what you're saying. You know, what can you do after these last 50 minutes? You know, that you couldn't do before? What is something that you thought, you know what is this is one thing I can work on?
So we're going to jump into this and see how far we can get, okay? Y'all give us a little more time. Our first goal was an hour, but we had to do all the intro and all of that stuff. So give us a little more time. Your marriage is worth it. Your relationships are worth it. So just give us a little more time. So we're talking about the art and the science of communication. The single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place, by George Bernard Shaw.
That's so good. So good.
The single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place, by George Bernard Shaw.
Yes.
So people are giving us our things. We're going to go back and read those and we'll comment that, right?
Good.
Why do people struggle with communication? Well, there are many reasons that couples struggle with effective communication, but we're going to give you a couple. One reason is that people come from different backgrounds and may have different ways of expressing themselves. I am going to give you a simple example for us. Growing up in my family, we could not say lie. And in your family, you could.
Yep.
So to me today, one of the most disrespectful things you can say to me is I'm telling a lie.
I remember the first time
I went off on you.
No, I remember before that. I remember the first time I went to your grandma's house.
And you said lie?
I told you was lying about something.
My grandma got you together. She gathered you up so
She
nice.
gathered me like she had raised me from a baby.
Baby, she gathered you up. But I'm saying, so he would say, oh, that's a lie.
And even remember, what do we say about communication? The single biggest problem is the illusion it is taking place. I would say that's a lie, but what you heard was
I'm a liar.
You a liar.
Because really, who tell lies? Liars.
But I was literally stating the thing you said at that moment was a lie, not who you were. But again, we came from different backgrounds, different ways of expressing ourselves, and that was a communication gap for us.
Right. And so lie, like Crystal said, lie is a cuss word in our house. So you cussing me? You cussing me? And to this day, I don't let our kids say lie. They may say it, but they do not say it.
Right.
They do not say it to me. Right. I don't play that. Don't tell me no lie. Right. So additionally, people have different communication styles and may not understand how to effectively communicate with their partner.
Yeah.
Right.
Some people, because
these people grew up with me. They say you say feel but telling the story. You don't tell nobody a lie. Not nobody you lie.
Some people, you know, you talked about having different communication styles, not knowing how to communicate to their partner, right? Some of it has to do with the fact that some people, because of trauma, they may have learned early to just shut down and not talk. Other people may have grown up where they didn't have any trauma and they just said whatever, you know, they may have came from a family where everybody just said whatever they wanted to say, you know, and so, or you may have come from a combination of that. And as a result of that, you bring all of you into a relationship and the other person brings all of them into that relationship. And those two things could be like nails on a chalkboard, depending on how you communicate if you don't learn to do it effectively.
Right. So now you think you take the person who shuts down because of trauma,
yes,
right, to the person who the shutting down feels like rejection.
Yes.
So now you got this whole conflict.
So I feel hurt by what you said. I can't communicate it effectively, so I shut down. Me shutting down makes you feel like you're rejected, and if you're rejected, then you're not loved. If you're not loved, then you're not going to put all your heart and soul into the relationship. I start to see if you're not putting all your heart and soul into the relationship, why the heck should I put all my heart and soul into the relationship? And it cycles all because we don't have effective communication styles.
Can y'all see that? And many of the times when people are fighting and breaking up, it is not over big things.
It's not.
It is over these little things that we don't have the skills.
Yes.
So that's why I said to you guys, it's okay not to know. It's not okay to stay there.
Yes.
So I want to give a tip because several people said, I know it's out the notes, babe, but just bear with me. Several people said that they shut down, right?
Mhm.
I am going to ask you to practice moving forward, saying, I need a few minutes to gather myself.
Mhm.
I need to gather myself and I will be back. I am not leaving you.
Yeah.
That's important to
It's
communicate.
important to me, and we're going to talk about that. So again, why do people struggle with communication? Stress, tiredness, life demands, all of these things can make it difficult for couples to communicate effectively with each other. You know, teaching. I'm a former teacher. Teaching is both an art and a science.
Mhm.
So is communication. There are certain tools and there are certain methodologies that you ought to use to communicate.
That's good, babe.
But just because it works that way for one person, the nuance of that may be different for somebody else.
That's good.
And so you got to understand when we're talking about communication, we're trying to give you the science of it. You have to practice to get the art of it down. Finally, past conflicts, we talked about this, or traumatic experiences can make it difficult for couples to communicate effectively. So what we want to do is take a moment and get you to participate and do something in this session. We want you to grade your communication. Remember, I told you you're going to need a paper, you're going to need some pencil, a paper, or something. And listen, I need you to do this individually, even if you're watching together. Even if you're watching together, sitting beside each other real close, just for a moment, I need you to kind of turn. I need you to kind of it can be a scratch piece of paper, because what I want you to do is I'm going to want you to follow up with some of these answers here in just a little bit. There's 4 questions we want to ask. 4 questions, and we appreciate those of you who are still hanging in there with us. 4 questions. We want you to rate yourself on a scale from 1 to 5, with 5 being the highest, okay? We wanted you to rate yourself, and you don't have to put them in the comment section or anything like that, but we want you to do this at home, wherever you are, on whatever note-taking utensils you have. But we want you to rate yourself from 1 to 5, with 5 being the highest, on how you do these things, okay? Here's number 1. Have we been quick to listen, and have we been slow to speak? On a scale of 1 to 5, how would you rate yourself? Would you say, I'm quick to listen and slow to speak? I'm a 5, I'm great at it? Or 1, I rarely do it. I'm rarely do it. I'm quick to say something and slow to listen. I'm just the opposite.
Now remember, you're only rating yourself,
not your spouse. You're rating yourself.
I love they put it in the comments, baby. They ready.
They're not playing.
They're not ready.
That's
okay?
fine. If you want to put it in the comments, that is wonderful.
Okay.
Here's number 2.
Have I, because it's we, but it's really you as an individual, have I cultivated the habit of giving and receiving proper encouragement and proper criticism?
Because we do a whole probably 2 or 3 hour professional development on the art of giving feedback.
The art of giving feedback.
Because there's a way to give feedback. Criticism sounds bad.
Somebody said -10.
Listen, to know thyself is the beginning.
You can get better.
You can get better. G.I. Joe, what's the thing he said? Knowing is half the battle. G.I. Joe said, knowing is half the battle.
Yes, we can post these questions on this page later on.
Yes,
we can post
we'll
them,
post them later on.
Right.
And the video will be available. You can go back and listen again and everything. But if you can do it live time, that's great as well. Here's the 3rd question, okay? 3rd question. Do I, or do we, really it's about I, do I use a gracious and loving tone when I speak to my partner or when we speak to each other? Now, why is this important? We have talked about this ad nauseum. How many times do you see somebody talking so reckless and crazy to the person, don't be looking at me like that, to the person they say they love, but yet they talk to a total stranger 2 seconds later with the voice of an angel. And it's like, how are you how are you talking to a stranger better than you're talking to me? And so you rate yourself. How do you talk to your partner, your spouse? How do you talk to the people in your life? Maybe you tell the truth 100% of the time, but what about your tone? Is your tone gracious? Is it loving? That's number 3. Rate yourself.
Number 4, are we quick to forgive? Am I quick to forgive?
Or are you a grudge holder? If you're a grudge holder, go ahead and mark that 1. Now, I will admit, people have heard
like a negative.
People have heard my testimony. I don't know that there was a number for me. If you wronged me, if you thought you was wrong, I thought I was wrong, if I thought I was wrong, I was a grudge holding grudge. But praise God, have I changed?
You have definitely changed.
Now notice I didn't say I changed, because remember, I can't determine whether I'm a grudge holder to my wife. Who has to determine that? You do. So have I
definitely changed?
So I'm telling you, change is possible. You can change. Just because you started off as an old grouch and grudge holder, don't mean you have to stay that way.
Stay there. You don't have to stay there.
I'm
right?
gonna let your comments slide for right now, because
they
don't know us that way.
Practice self-control. Be the best you can be. Now, you don't have to rate yourself, but you should rate yourself on these, right?
Right.
When was the not a number rating, but just be self-reflective. When was the last time I said thank you for an ordinary task, like making dinner, paying the bills, doing the dishes, fixing the car, getting me a glass of water? When is the last time I just said thank you, right? When is the last time I just said thank you? And then if you didn't get all the questions, we're going to post them. We'll post them. So we got to keep moving. When was the last time I cheerfully asked? When was the last time I cheerfully asked, how can I help you this week?
How can I help you? That's a powerful, powerful statement if you think about it, to ask unsolicited, how can I help you, right? And then each person do this next thing for the person you're in the relationship with, okay? You can do it now, or you can even do it later. But at some point between now and preferably February 7th, I need you to ask your partner one way that you communicate that is helpful for the relationship. Because if I tell you one way and you tell me one way, we now have two new ways that at least two things we are aware of how we should be communicating to each other that makes the other person feel like they're being heard.
That's good. Okay?
All right. Now, here's a couple questions. When you do you communicate what we call unbiblically? Okay. Or do you communicate unbiblically? In other words, what communication habits do you currently have that intentionally push the other person's buttons? And we know you got them. If you've been in with someone long enough, you know there's a certain way you can say something or a certain thing you can do that will absolutely push their buttons. Am I right about it?
Right about it.
And so you want to make sure that you're not being a button pusher, because that is a hindrance to good communication, right?
And then what communication habits do we have that unintentionally push each other's buttons?
Because you may have some that you know about, but you in a conversation, and we tell people, have these conversations when they're not at a boiling point, right? Don't wait till you're upset and say, well, what do I do to push your button? That's
just not gonna end well.
That's just not the right way to ask that question. You ask these questions when you go to Cold Stone and get some ice cream, and you're just sitting down and say, hey, we were taking Edwin and Sean's class, and one of the things they mentioned was about, unintentional things we do to push your button. Can you give me one or two? And watch this. The person who's being asked, if they ask for one or two,
give them one or two.
Not 12. That is not the time for you to lay into them and give them all 50 things you've been holding on to since the relationship started. Give them one or two things that you would like them to work on so they can do that.
So we're going to give you just some things that you can think about. Do I do these things? Do I interrupt my partner?
Mm,
Do I not pay attention when my partner speaks to me? Like,
mm.
one of the things we both have to work on because
Yes.
we're busy is
It's-
to actually put
put
our
our
phone
phone down.
down
Yes.
when the person is saying something to us, right? Do we make sweeping generalizations? One of the rules we have in our relationship is that you cannot say always or never.
Because nothing is always and nothing is never.
Except Jesus.
That's
Amen.
right.
All right.
You don't never listen to me, or you always say I'm lying. No, because that communication tone and that communication tactic already stalls the development of the conversation.
It absolutely does. Do you make sweeping generalizations? We just used that one. Do you blame shift? Blame shift is this. When he says to me, you were rude to me when I said X, and I say, well, you was rude all this morning. Now you're shifting the blame here. Now we're dealing with this moment right here. Go ahead.
Here's another tool, power tool. In our relationship, if one of us is talking to the other person about something that individual did, that person does not have the authority to bring up something that person did at some other time in the past, no matter how bad you want to do it, because what it does is it stalls the relationship. And we had to really work through that because we
still have to work it there.
Absolutely.
We still work it there.
But and we give each other the grace to call the other person on it. So I give you a prime example. Okay. If she says to me, you walked in the house. No, here's one. You left the house and didn't tell me where you were going.
Mm-hmm.
And I say, well, on Wednesday, you left the house and didn't tell me where you were going. I have now violated the rules of our contract with communication. Because if I had an issue with you leaving on Wednesday, the time to say that was when?
Wednesday.
Not when you call me out for doing the same thing that you did. Even though you did it, I have to learn to bite my tongue and say, you're right. Part of our understanding is we don't leave the house without telling the other person. I apologize. I was in a rush. I was cooking something, realized I didn't have any onion powder, and I ran to Walmart to get it real quick, and you were in your office, and I didn't want to interrupt, and I would just run to the store and coming back. Acknowledge what you did wrong, right? Then you can fix it, but you don't get to say, well, you did it too. The time to do that is when the person does it. That's one of our rules, one of our tools.
I don't know who said this, baby, but they tickle me so bad.
Somebody said they're habitual.
No, but
my man Duke. I get it, brother.
But but see, here's the thing. But somebody up there, they said they in their relationship, they got the blame shifting championship over there.
Listen.
Now understand this.
It's great to recognize it though.
It's funny when we talk about it, but I want us to stop and think. If I'm always shifting blame, if he's always shifting blame, what does that do to the relationship, to the integrity of the relationship? Because here's what it says to me. It says, what's the point in talking?
They said we need a whole session on blame shifting. Listen, when you do the survey, put that on your survey. Now, we'll do it.
Now, what that happens is that we both end up saying, what's the point in talking to you?
Right.
You never listen to me.
You
don't care about how I feel.
Exactly right.
So while it's funny to hear it talked about, understand that it is incredibly damaging to do to the integrity of your relationship because. And think about it.
That's so good.
So when we're both blame shifting.
I hope y'all are getting this. I hope y'all hearing this.
When we both blame shifting.
Because we've been here.
Right. Because blame shifting. Here's the thing. You got a bunch of degrees and I went to law school.
Yeah.
Baby, the art that we had to not accept responsibility and put it on the other person. So here's the thing you got to ask yourself right here. Is it more important to be right or to have a healthy relationship? And I can honestly tell you that in the beginning, what I cared about was being right. And I would be right at any cost. Even if being right meant you didn't want to talk to me for 2 days. All that mattered to me if I was right. But if you act that way, you are either not going to be happily married
Mhm.
or you're not going to stay married to each other.
Yeah.
Now, you may stay married, but you're not going to
And
be
not
happy.
just married. If you're a blame shifter, you do it with every
You
relationship.
do it at work.
You do it with your kids. You,
You
do
do-
it at work. You
yes.
do it with your parents. So we talk about marriage, but listen, we're not just talking about marriage. This ain't just marriage 101. This is relationship 101. These things, if you recognize yourself doing them, it's like the Bible says, a little leaven leaveneth the whole lump. Or it says a little yeast makes the whole cake rise. If you're a blame shifter with your friends, you'll be a blame shifter with your family. You'll be a blame shifter at work. You'll be a blame shifter in the organizations you serve in. Blame shifting is something that we have to get away from, because what it really is a pseudo form of protection, but it's a false form of protection.
Absolutely. And we need to own it for what it is. It's toxic.
Yeah.
And it's going to poison the relationships we say we care about.
And if you're a man and you do it, it's toxic masculinity. And if you're a woman who do it, it's toxic femininity.
I cannot. All right. Okay. So let's keep going. Are you passive in communication? You're not.
You shut down.
You just shut down. You don't engage.
Or passive aggressive. You got
Passive
something smart to
aggressive.
say all the
You know
time.
what I'm saying? Or right. And then do you blow up in the middle of conversation? Because let me tell you something. Passive people who shut down and people who blow up actually are the two sides of the same coin. They both one of them uses silence and the other one uses an explosion to control the narrative.
It's actually a form of manipulation.
It's a form of manipulation.
Yeah.
So when I just shut down on you, shutting down is a form of control. It's a form of manipulation. When I blow up, it's a form of manipulation. And see, if you'll own that about
and
yourself.
both of those are unhealthy products of trying to communicate.
They're unhealthy products. If somebody's talking to you and you just start hollering and screaming and cussing and acting a fool, it's a form of manipulation.
Yes.
It's your way of saying, I want you to get up off of me.
Yes.
And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to act a whole fool to get you to get up off of me.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
So how about this? Do you dig up past problems? So no matter what we talking about, we always got to go back to that time you injured me.
Even though I done asked for forgiveness, you done told me you forgave me. We said it was dead and buried. We had the funeral for it. But the moment you can use it as a tool of manipulation to get back at me, you pull it out. What we talk to couples, and I tell people all the time, infidelity doesn't have to be the end of a relationship. But if infidelity happens and you are unable and unwilling to move on, then you have to make some tough decisions, because nobody deserves to be in a relationship where, number one, they just keep being punished over and over and over for a thing that they did that they aren't doing anymore. And I'm not taking up for a man or a woman. I'm saying if you make a mistake and you blow it and infidelity is the result of that, you have to own it 100%. But if you own it 100% and the two of you, nobody else, decide that you want to stay together and work through it, you can. But if the other person, who was the person who didn't commit the infidelity, in their heart can't get over it, and every time that person does anything, they forgot to get the milk, and you out cheating again? I mean, it's like, dude, every single thing I do, you're throwing up my past. If that's going to be the case, you got to make some hard decisions. We tell people when we counsel them, if you can't get over that, you may have to move on, because the person who did it doesn't deserve to get beat up, and the person who didn't do it didn't deserve to be tormented and just keep reliving it like it happened yesterday.
Somebody said infidelity. We talking about infidelity, like if you have financial infidelity, if somebody makes a mistake financially, it doesn't matter what the mistake is.
Because financial infidelity is infidelity.
It doesn't matter what the mistake is. We cannot keep throwing it up. And I see a couple people saying it was a continued pattern. Then you have to ask yourself, while you stay and deal with a continued pattern.
Because we're not talking about continued pattern.
We're not talking about continued pattern. So if you choose to stay with someone who has a continued pattern, you need to do the work to deal with why you would stay with them, but you still don't get to do all of these things because you have the choice not to be there.
Right, because there's clearly no communication, no trust, no respect, no love, no intimacy. If that's gone, why are you there? And I know people know that we're pastors, but we're not pastors who tell people don't get divorced. We've told people that before. Y'all need to run from each other, because sometimes that is the case when everything else has been broken down, right?
So do you speak harshly or scold or put down your partner? Do you say things to your partner like, you need to let me read that because you didn't read that good in 3rd grade?
Come on,
like a lot of
let's get
times
to
people, this real thing that people do these things, and the truth of it is that a lot of people, because you have unresolved issues, because you have not dealt with your own pain, you are actually mean in your relationship.
Oh, come on.
And so you're like, why does my spouse not want to have sex with me? Because you mean all day.
Why don't my friends like to invite me places? Because you mean
and negative all day. You have got to deal with those things. Yes. And when you find yourself, and I want to say this, particularly if you was a kid if you was on the bus in the 80s and the 90s, your clapback game is probably proficient.
Yeah. But if you were 80s or 90s kids and rode a bus, your ability with a comeback is immaculate.
But if you do that in your relationship,
you're
not going to be happily married. You're going to tear it up. You're going to tear it up, right? Then next one, do you give the cold shoulder or the silent treatment?
And here's the thing that's interesting to me. I have counseled people who I know who have lived in the house, and they say they didn't talk to each other for 5 days. They did not speak to each other. They didn't have a communication because they blew up or something happened. They didn't speak to each other for 5 days. And what typically happens is that's when you really have 2 grudge holders. If you have 2 grudge holders in the same situation, somebody's got to be the bigger person. I won't use my other word.
Don't do it.
Somebody's got to be the bigger person. We in mixed company, but somebody got to be the bigger person and say, hey, this is ridiculous. We supposed to love each other, and we haven't spoken to each other. We walking by each other in the morning. We seeing each other. We're getting in the same bed, and we're not speaking to each other. And then what happens is this last one. Talk about this last one. What's this last one?
Use sex as a weapon by withholding it when you don't get your way.
That is a tool of manipulation, and I want you to hear me loud and clear. Sex should not be used as a weapon or a tool to get your way.
It should not be.
Your partner shouldn't feel that way. You shouldn't feel that way. And we mention that because it actually happens, right? So let's finish up. Let's talk about how do people get better with communication. We said it's a science, right? We said it's an art. We're going to give you some science to it, and then you have to practice the art. You have to practice the art. So here's the first thing. How do people get better with communication? Number one, you got to practice active listening. You got to practice it. If you are a person who is not, I won't even just say an introvert, but if you're a person who's not aggressive, maybe you're a more passive person, it is hard to have somebody saying something to you and you're not already thinking about what you're going to say back. But if you are, all the research says, if you are already thinking about what you're going to say back, then you are not listening. You are not listening. So another tool here, what we do is if you're talking to me, I'm listening, because what I have to do is to say to you, okay, here is what I heard you say, right? And if I say it in a way that's not what you said, you go, no, that's not what I said.
That's not what I said.
What I said was, and I have to hear it again and say, okay, what I heard you say was. And once I get it right, now I have the chance to respond. But the reason most people don't hear what the other person is saying is because you're pre-formulating your rebuttal before they've ever finished what they had to say. So number one, you got to practice active listening.
And here's a practical tool that people can do. Here are 2 things that we actually use. Well, one thing we didn't use. One, when we had something important to talk about, we would email each other.
Yeah.
And we would use the email to work through and really hear each other.
Yeah.
But we had some friends that they would take one of those timers.
Yeah.
And the person would hold the timer and you could not talk unless you had the timer in your hand.
Yeah. Some people do it with a stick, whatever it is.
There are practical things that you can do, but you have to practice active listening.
And what works for us may not work for you, but active listening works. The way it works, you have to do it yourself.
And if it does, if you've been used to, you can tell we both talk a lot. We both preachers, right? So for us, it may not have been as easy as it may be for somebody else, but you got to practice.
Yeah.
You have to practice learning new habits.
Yes.
Number 2, use I statements. Don't say, you don't think about me. You say, I don't feel like you consider me when you always go get French fries and don't ask me if I want any.
Use I statements. Oh wow, really? On the French fries.
When you go get French fries and you don't ask me if I wanted any, I don't feel that you considered me.
Yeah.
Does that make sense, guys?
Using I statements are much better than you statements.
Yes.
Yeah, you don't consider me.
Because there's a difference between saying I don't feel considered and saying you don't consider me.
Because I don't have the right to tell you how to feel. You can feel that way, but that's different than saying you don't consider me, because you are not actually inside of me and know whether I'm considering you or not. So using I statements actually is a better tool for communication.
Yes.
And then number 3, you mentioned this earlier, learn how to take breaks. Some people have a conversation until they beat that horse to death, and then they resurrect it and beat it to death again. You have to
just
learn.
Call my name. Just at me.
You have
just at me.
As y'all can tell, these are our tools that we're sharing with you. You have to learn to take a break. Sometimes you have to say, you know what? We're going to agree to disagree for right now. I need 15 minutes. I need 30 minutes. Can we revisit this tomorrow? And you can't use that as a weapon to always want to take a break to never talk about the issue,
on,
right? So take a break. If you're feeling overwhelmed or you feel like the conversation is not getting productive anymore, if you slide into some of that blame shifting, you slide into some of them harsh words, take a break. It can be helpful to take a break and then come back to the discussion later when you both have more of a level head.
Number 4, you have to make time for communication.
Yes.
You have to make time. Set aside dedicated time to have open and honest conversations with your partner, and try to create a safe and judgment-free space for those conversations to take place. I got to say this. You got to set aside a time and you got to create a safe space. Here is the safe space you have to do. If your partner tells you something in confidence, don't tell your mama, your best friend, nobody else, and do not come back and throw up in their face what they told you.
Man, if you do, you will ruin all trust, all respect. Can I just say this, and I'm serious for women too, but can I say this for men, especially for men? If a man trusts and respects you enough to be vulnerable enough to share something with you, and then you turn around in the midst of a heated discussion and throw it up in his face and use it against him, that man more than likely will almost be impenetrable for you to ever get him to share that again. So you got to guard these safe spaces. You got to guard these safe spaces. If I use language like "you hurt my feelings," right? And I tell you I'm sad, or I feel sad when you do X, and then we get into it and you like, well, with your little sensitive self. Well, now the moment you do that, I'm never telling you that you ever hurt my feelings again. And so I think it's important that's why you take breaks before it gets unproductive, and you make time for safe spaces, right?
Well, I think it's important because women, I think this is important. A lot of times women talk about what men don't say. Read the comments.
Look at my guys. They say
the guys
always.
Are telling you.
Read the comments.
The guys
they're telling you it's over.
You.
It's a wrap.
And I want you to hear me, because this is what women do sometimes. This is now. What we can't do now is all lives matter this.
No, we can't.
We can't all lives matter this. The men are saying, if you do this, this is a deal breaker.
Yes.
This is now not our time to be like, me too. This is our time to say, we hear you. We are going to make sure we have done that.
Look at these men in these comments. They are telling you.
And if you have done it, you need to apologize. This is not the time for you to center yourself in them being honest and telling you that this is how they feel.
Yes. And it ain't the time to be mad either, talking about, why you mad? Listen, don't do that. If you want to build a healthy relationship with this man, and I'm telling you, you need to understand that the fact that he even shared a part of his heart with you.
Men ain't even been commenting. Now they coming on in the all capital letters.
I'm telling you, I know what I know. If a man decides that he trusts and loves you enough that he is going to share this with you, And if you take what he shared and use it as a tool to cut him, he will never allow you to make him bleed again.
Pull up Mr. Madison's comment, because I think this is a big comment, and then we'll do our last point. We'll get out of here. Look at what he says here. I think that this is such an important comment, because I said at the beginning, we don't consider the pressure men are under. He says we can't be vulnerable with our women because as a man, we can't show weakness. And when we do, we are judged or looked at differently.
He's telling you the truth.
They trying to tell us something, ladies. They trying to tell
us something. When we talk about relationship 101, this is what I'm talking about. These are the kind of conversations we need to be having in mixed company so that people understand what we're getting into and what we're dealing with.
Robert just said, this is the reason I don't share. So now, women, we got to create space. We have to create space that says, I will be a safe place for you.
Yes.
Which means we have got to learn to keep our mouth closed sometimes. We have got to learn that everything doesn't require a reply. And we have got to learn that if a man trusts us with his vulnerability, it should be protected.
Now my friend said something, and I want to comment on this. He said, you might as well let the other woman in when you say that. Now, here's what I'm gonna tell you. It may sound harsh, but that's real, because what's going to happen is even if he's not intentionally doing it, or even if he doesn't physically do it, he's looking for a safe place, and you have demonstrated you're not the safe place. So somebody else is going to show him the safe place. And the way that you guard against that is by not doing those things that we're doing. So Frat's telling the truth on that one.
And you got to give it to him, because he don't always have good Nate logic. But this right here, this a
but we love you, Nate.
Right,
but we love you, Nate.
And this is important, guys. Hear what I'm about to say. You're not gonna like it, but hear what I'm about to say. It is never, ever the fault of the other person.
Never.
If someone cheats.
That's right.
But you can do things that make that option easier for them.
That's right. That's right. You can open doors.
You can open doors.
Yes.
And men are telling us in these comments, all these men have told us,
like it was no men, and then like 100 men.
No, it was like ain't no men here. Then all the men said yes. Guys, and I hear, Patty says, if you you intentionally cheated, you can't look for reasons to cheat. You can't. But you also cannot use your mouth as a weapon, and then say, I don't understand how I got here.
It is the equivalent of being abusive to your child and then telling your child they shouldn't have trauma. No, nobody should cheat. We are not ordaining, saying it's right under any circumstance whatsoever. But what I can tell you is there's not a divorce rate of 60% because everybody is not using their words properly. When you don't use your words properly, you open doors for people to do things that maybe they shouldn't or wouldn't do. And that's all I'm saying about that part.
And I want to say this again. Listen, and women, I want y'all to hear my heart, and you can get upset with me or not. But I see women in the comments saying it's us too. But 90% of this conversation has really been about what men should do for women. They finally come out the woodwork and start talking to us. All day long, women say, my man won't show up for counseling. My man won't show up for coaching. My man won't go to church. And when the men finally show up and say, somebody goes, why is it always about what the men are telling us? Or women matter too. And I want you to hear me. Stop.
It's why when I see someone post and they make a post, they talk about how hard Black women have it, I say yes. Because now it's not the time to talk about how hard Black men have it. We're talking about Black women and how hard they have it. Yes. Men are telling you that if you use what they tell you against them, they're not going to talk to you. Yes, I hear you. That's all that needs to be said on that one.
Yes. Can all the women practice? Yes, I hear you.
And then let's talk about this last one, number 5.
Seek out professional help before it's too late.
Don't wait till you are beyond the recovery before you seek out help. Seek out help early. If you're having persistent difficulties with communication or any area, It can be helpful to seek out help from trained professionals. I tell people, I'm sharing with you some things that happened that work for me. I am not a marriage counselor. I am not a trained therapist. I can tell you what not to do because I did a lot of it. But for the most part, if you're having difficulties, and I know in our community, I say our community, African-American community, sometimes we think that there's an issue with getting help, but you can love God and get therapy. I'm going to say it again. You can love God and get I'm going to say it one more time. You can love God and get therapy. So that's what we have for you tonight. Let's talk just real quick about what you can expect coming up, okay? We're going to invite some guest couples to come on. We're going to talk to some, we want to bring some other people in and share some of their experiences. We got some people who are experts in particular topics. And so based on what you put in your surveys, if there are things that are above our privy, then we're going to find some experts to bring on and talk to you. We also, at some point, when the weather is nice, maybe have a live gathering. Well, we have everybody who's participated in, 6 or 7 of these, maybe come together and we have a weekend retreat or something. We don't know how all that's going to go, but those are some things that we want to have happen. And then we want you to get ready for the next class. It is February the 7th. Go ahead and put it on your calendar. If this has been beneficial, if it's been a waste of your time, then hey, we don't expect you to waste your time. We don't expect you to come back. But if it's been beneficial for you, and I know it's a little long, we won't be 90 minutes next time.
Yes, we will. Listen, yes, we will. Guys, we're meeting once a month. You can allot 2 hours and we'll try to get it done in 90 minutes.
All right.
But we cannot teach you everything we've learned in 28 years and try to scrunch it in 60 minutes. If your relationships matter to you, then make the time and do it. And babe, we owe them not to say we can do this in 60 minutes.
You're right. Yes, dear.
You watch watch movies for 90 minutes.
Yes, dear.
You can do this.
Yes, dear. And y'all did binge watch Best Man for 8 hours, so you can do. Yes, ma'am.
And most of the people stay.
You're right. You're right.
So
absolutely.
All right. Listen,
now,
guys.
There's one thing we want you to do. You can see it scrolling at the bottom of the screen. You can't copy it there, but someone has probably pasted it. If they haven't, they will. It's in my notes. You can paste it in the comment section. Please, please, please copy that. When we finish, you go to it. It literally takes you a minute. It asks you 4 questions. That information is helpful for us to plan for the next session. This first one was kind of like, okay, what are we going to do? Want to introduce it. We knew communication was a foundation, so we started with communication. Okay, but I need you to go to the comment section. I need you to make sure that you fill out that survey and get that back to us if you don't mind. Okay,
I'm trying to. You're right, because you can pin. He's right. You can pin this to the screen, and I'm trying to pin.
Well, I don't know how to pin it.
No, I do know because they taught me one time.
But if you will take our 1 minute, listen. I appreciate it. I think at one point we had what was the high number we had? 336. 336 people in 22 states represented. So that's awesome. Hopefully next time we can get 25, 30 states represented. Here's what I need you to do for me, though. If it was beneficial, tell a friend. If everybody brings one person, we can double this thing next.
This is what I want you to do. I want you to do some clear actions before you leave, okay? Before you get up from your spot, right? Number 1, if you have not liked the page.
340, I'm sorry, 340 in 22 states and 2 continents.
If you have not liked the page, we need you to like the page. Number 2, make a quick post and tag the page in it. Say, join me here. Those are things on social media. Those are big things that make a difference. We actually aren't going to do Instagram. Probably not. We maybe could try Instagram next month. We'll try. Let's try.
We could try it. We StreamYard.
We should add YouTube too.
StreamYard. Here's the issue. And I just so real quick, I explain why I only wanted to do it from this one page. When you do it from this one page, everybody comes here and we get to see you get to see everybody's comments. The more pages we do it to, you don't get to see the comments of the people on the other pages. So if we do it from YouTube and 20 people are there, and we do it from here and 200 people are here, and we do it on IG and it's 50 people from there, only the people on those particular pages get to see those particular comments. I love the interaction of everybody being in one place. And so here, I'm not always stubborn about everything, but I'm gonna be stubborn about this for a minute.
Okay.
Tell people to like this page and to come here. Like this page and come here. And when we go live, this is where we are. This is our community. This is how we're going to show up. If you don't do Facebook, get Facebook so you can come here once a month and be here so we can have all the comments and everybody right here.
And since you gave on the time, we'll give on that.
All right.
All right. So it's a win.
See how that compatibility and flexibility
win.
works?
All right. Listen, before you get up from your spot, like the page, make a post, share it.
Take our survey.
Take our survey. And remember, next month, we're going to use pictures. Listen, we love you guys. We appreciate you. We hope you got something from it. We hope you'll tell everybody, and we will see you on February 7th.
Thank you, guys. Have a good one. Bye-bye.